Good morning, live from the IEC National Results Centre in Midrand. This is SowetanLIVE, Elections 2024 with myself, Nwabisa Makunga. It's a happy Friday. I don't know if it is. It's quite a tense Friday. Good tense, good tricky. Everybody's quite, wondering essentially what will be happening in the next few hours. The next few hours will really define the course of South Africa for the next 5 years. But I mean, as we've said in this week, it's a big week for South Africa. We're going to have many conversations, not just today, but kind of carrying on, really looking at how things are shaping up. And for now, for this slot, I've got a colleague of mine who's going to have a conversation with me, Thabiso Thakali, who's the deputy editor of Sowetan. Thabiso, welcome.
Thank you so much, Nwabisa.
Are you awake? It's been a hectic week for us.
It's been very busy, and I'm feeling a little bit like exhausted. I think it was difficult to wake up this morning, but it is to be expected, isn't it?
It is, and can I just say, for everybody who doesn't know, Thabiso is a man who's kind of been helping us as far as the show is concerned, but also trying to put out a print publication. Yeah. So well done on that.
Thank you so much.
The numbers are looking tricky, right?
Yeah.
The CSIR is predicting an ANC that will probably walk away with just between 40 and 42% of the vote. Yeah. Were we expecting that?
I think the ANC itself would probably have been taken by a surprise. My view is that this is not surprising at all. If you look at the trajectory of the ANC's performance, whether you include the local government elections and the national government elections, I think if you look at that graph, you can almost predict that this was bound to happen. What we didn't know is when was it going to happen, and nobody could put their finger on it. I think it is not surprising at all, but I think for majority of South African public who have been following elections, they may also have been surprised by the fact that it came so early. I think a lot of people, a lot of experts, a lot of people who have been doing modeling, including the CSIR, were expecting it to be a kind of a gradual decline of the ANC, and that at some point we're going to reach this point. But I think 30 years into democracy, you could argue that it's a very long time.
It's quite a milestone. I mean, imagine, the ANC losing power 30 years into democracy. So obviously, we've seen many African countries where this kind of, this kind of thing happens. So yesterday, Thabiso, I had Sam Kokeli here, who's one of our colleagues, former colleagues, and he made quite a interesting point, and he said, Jacob Zuma had always said that the ANC will rule until Jesus comes, and he goes on to say, and suddenly this week, Jacob Zuma himself brings Jesus back, for as far as the ANC is concerned. Yeah. The MK was quite a surprise, I think, for many people. Yeah. Were we caught, off guard as far as the media is concerned in terms of how the MK was able to rally support? I
think certainly. I think a lot of us didn't give as much attention as we ought to have given to the MK. And I think also, to be fair to the media, it wasn't because we didn't think they couldn't do it, but it was just also, exercising good judgment. If you look at elections over time, and if you look at the majority of votes that ANC has been able to garner over the years, you could not possibly think that one party individually would be able to do what they have done. What they have done is quite significant in many ways. If you look at the KwaZulu-Natal, for example, everybody is talking about their exceptional performance. But I think the bigger picture is also the fact that they have that performance in KwaZulu-Natal has altered the shape, or has changed the shape of our national politics. So the parliament will not be the same. The ANC's grip on power has been shaken, even if you are talking about, the numbers that are largely from a rural vote in KwaZulu-Natal. So I think that's quite significant. But from our point of view as the media, I think we could have paid a lot more attention to what MK was doing. But the reality of South African politics today is that there is constantly a huge voter kind of bloc that is always looking. And I think one of the profound indications of these elections or these results is the fact that South African voters are really looking for alternatives. They are tired of the status quo.
I mean, I want us to be very clear. The ANC is still the leading party, right? Yeah. So I always make this point to say, when we talk about what we call a post-ANC reality, we're not necessarily talking about an ANC that's off the face of the earth. Yeah. It's still a hugely significant. In fact, it's the top, performing party, although obviously below the, its majority. And of course, there are nuances as far as that is concerned. Parliament is going to be a big one.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think one of the most important discussions we've had ourselves is around the fact that democracy in itself is actually served better if Parliament reflects a broad spectrum of voices and representation. And I think the ANC majority over a very long time has been such that a lot of people almost gave up or almost looked away whenever policy and laws were made. They just thought, for as long as the ANC has the majority, I think the NHI bill, for example, the Bella bill that was passed recently by the past administration, if you look at it in terms of the dynamics of that, you realize that the only province that it didn't vote for those legislations was the Western Cape. Now, that's a very much concerning for a democracy. You would like to deepen it far much more than. And what this election results may represent is that kind of a change. So it won't be the makeup of the Parliament, National Assembly, and the National Council of Provinces is going to be completely different. So the passing of legislation is not going to be as easy as just a majoritarian rule that just says, okay, because a number of provinces agreed, then it's passed. And I think the debate and the interrogation or the questioning of the legislation for the good of South Africans is going to become a very much key aspect of this.
Yeah. We're going to look at, just in a minute, we're going to look at what the CSIR is projecting for seats in Parliament.
Yeah.
But I think, and this is a question I asked some of our guests yesterday, is really about the quality of a member of Parliament in South Africa. I mean, it's always been important, but I think now it becomes so crucial because, as the picture that you're painting, because now it's no longer like kind of like a majority rule kind of thing, but the number of political parties who have significant representation in Parliament. Yeah. The quality of an MP in South Africa. Do you think we've got like the right people in those places? So
it's a bit difficult to say, Nwabisa, because I mean it's a subjective view. I mean that one expresses about the sense that one gets is that there isn't really the quality that you think the South African public deserves. But I think what this situation that we find ourselves in does, it really nudges everybody to kind of look through their ranks and assess the credibility, the quality of leadership that they are basically sending to National Assembly. If you have been entrusted with a level of power by the South African public, it may not be enough for you to make the rules or to make the laws, but the reality is that if they've sent you to Parliament, they expect something in return. And the kind of people that you send to that Parliament, the caliber of leadership, the depth of thinking, and the understanding of the realities of South Africans, which are quite huge in these results if you think about it, because I think the results in themselves also reflect that. So the quality is there to a certain extent, but is it where everybody wants it to be? I doubt it very much. But I hope that with what we are seeing today, or what we are seeing with these elections, we could get closer to actually getting the kind of quality of MPs that South Africa deserves. Yeah.
Let's perhaps have a look at some of those numbers. So which parties are set to go to Parliament as far as the CSIR predictions? Of course, the ANC sitting in the top spot there, but quite down. So the ANC currently had 230, or previously had 230 MPs, and the prediction is that 160 MPs. The sleepies at the back of the house seem to be, probably out of the picture now.
Absolutely. I think the biggest surprise for me also is the extent to which some of the parties, outside the ANC, have also kind of lost a bit of support. And that is going to really hurt them when it comes to representation in the National Assembly. So the level of, the numbers are going to have to count now. But it's not only the numbers, it's also, the caliber of people that are there. So gone are the days of, the ANC with its majority could afford to have a lot of people who are simply just backbenchers and who you hardly ever had them say anything that is quite significant or that is going to change the dynamics of South African socio-economic landscape. So I think this is a very good thing that what we are seeing. I mean, of course, these are just predictions. They are not yet final. Yeah. But if that is the picture that we are going to see, I think it can only be great for South Africa.
Okay. So we're going to have a look at more of these numbers, but perhaps let's just quickly go to a break and then we will be We will be right back.
We are Arena. We are home to some of the most trusted and loved brands spanning news, business and finance, lifestyle and entertainment. We believe in connecting people of all cultures. We pride ourselves on creating and curating quality content accessed by consumers when and how they want. We are a multi-platform media network that delivers unrivaled possibilities to advertisers. We reach millions of people each month across our print, digital, TV, radio, events and entertainment divisions. Our mass reach and premium content make us the perfect partner for your business. We are news. At the heart of Arena is a world-class newsroom that is committed to providing the country with breaking news from around the globe. With some of South Africa's favorite and oldest publications forming part of our portfolio, we deliver to readers a continuous feed of news and information ranging from business news, sports coverage to political analysis. We are home to Times Live, one of South Africa's largest websites, and the Sunday Times, South Africa's biggest weekend newspaper. We are entertainment. We bring local and international entertainment to audiences, while at the same time sharing authentic African entertainment with the world. You can leverage the emotional connection we forge through music and diverse blend of music, news, entertainment, and current affairs. We are events. We host and manage some of the most memorable and notable business and corporate events in Africa. We are ready to help you meet your strategic marketing objectives by creating solutions that entertain, innovate, and perform. We use imagination to develop impactful ad formats, creative and branded content, and data and insights to deliver intelligent solutions. No matter who you want to reach, we've got you covered because we are media. We are Arena.
Obviously, I'm also disappointed. When Action SA told us that they were going to bring 10.56% to the table when we met at Emperor's Palace, it doesn't look like that's going to materialise. And I think it would be a shame to just let the MPC fall by the wayside. We've got a local government election coming in 2 years' time. And I think it would make more sense for us to look at how we expand and grow the rational centre in South Africa rather than just simply abandoning it. So I still see a great future for the multi-party charter and its parties, either in its current configuration or in a new configuration, as I say, with other parties that decide to join that rational centre.
Have you received any update, Mr. Steene, in terms of the concerns raised around President Ramaphosa's address to the nation?
No, I spoke to our lawyers this morning. He's filed papers to oppose, and we'll obviously pursue those in court.
John, how do you celebrate 2 or 3% of growth when the ruling party has lost such a big margin? How can we celebrate that as a growth when the ruling party has already lost 10%?
We celebrate growth. That's exactly, you've answered your question yourself. We celebrate growth.
Welcome back to Sowetan Live, Elections 2024, with myself, Nwabisa Makunga. That was DA leader John Steenhuisen basically saying it's a good day for South Africa. It's a good day because the ANC seems set to actually lose its majority rule. And he says, he makes the point about how, parties which are reasonable ought to actually rise to this occasion. Of course, I am joined this morning by Solly Malatsi, who is the spokesperson of the Democratic Alliance, as well as Wessels from the FF+. Gentlemen, welcome.
Thank you.
So I'll start with you. Is it a good day for South Africa?
Absolutely. I think we've all been working towards this day where we'll see the ANC's majority being reduced. And I think it's the culmination of the work of all political parties that have been on this path, so that this hegemony that the ANC has on our political system can be dissolved. And what we are seeing is, the South African voters have made their choice, and that path has come with this election.
In the meantime, I think Solly's mic is probably not on, so we're just going to look. What we're looking at on our screen is effectively the results center on the floor. As I was saying earlier on, it is tense. It's quite tricky. As we used to say in 2016, the situation is critical but stable. I understand there is a press conference happening of the IEC. Of course, they give periodically what the numbers are looking like, and essentially talking to the media as far as how progress with this election is going on. But I want to go back to Solly. Solly, I was asking a question about, it's a good day, and you're making a point about how it's a culmination of, work by political parties.
Absolutely. I think, when you trace back into the political parties that have emerged on our political landscape, the collective work was to try and reduce the ANC's majority and ultimately get to a position where we can imagine the future of governance in South Africa without the ANC. And this day has come with this election. And credit to the South African voters who are the ones that have led us on this path. So it shows that even going forward, the future of governance in South Africa is going to be coalitions. I think 2016 was perhaps an indicator of what's likely going to come. 2021 consolidated that, and now at a national level, this is where we are, and this is why, in our view, we started the multi-party charter, because the projection was very much clear that the journey of governance, no party will have the majority to govern on its own. So you needed to do the preparatory work in anticipation of the political landscape that's going to change, and it has changed.
Wouter, he says that it's a culmination of the work of all political parties. What was your contribution as far as what the result we are seeing at the moment?
Well, I absolutely agree with Solly, but it's also not just campaigning. It's also the work that was done in the last 5 years, even longer, by opposition parties exposing the governing party, exposing the abuse of power, the fact that a one-party government isn't good for South Africa, and exposing the fact and creating also hope by doing that, so that the electorate now does know and made their choice now to say that there is other options, and that we can have a better future, and that we should have and should demand better service delivery and better livelihoods. And I think it is a day to celebrate, and it's also a day to thank the electorate, who are really the heroes, who stood in queues due to mistakes and problems on the IEC side, which is very unfortunate. But at the end of the day, the electorate stood there, and they brought out their voice, and they made their voice heard. And yes, now we have the ANC under 50%.
You were, of course, a member of Parliament, and you mentioned, some of the mistakes that you're saying have happened, under the IEC's watch. Should Parliament take some responsibility in where the IEC finds itself at the moment, considering, we're talking issues, the big conversation was about budgets, right? I know the Treasury has come out and say, well, we didn't really cut budgets, but a lot happened as far as the IEC is concerned. Should Parliament take, some responsibility for what we're seeing?
I have a problem with the fact that everything that goes wrong in South Africa, from the police to hospitals to the IEC, it's always blamed on budget. Budget is not the only problem. And you can get along with a small budget if you have good management and good communication and trained officials. If you train presiding officers and IEC workers for only 4 days, and during that 4 days it's not actually efficient training, then you have the problems. If you had problems in 2021, which is preventable problems, things that you then learn about the VMD machines, about not closing the polling station when the VMD goes offline. Those type of things were already identified in 2021, but it repeated itself with this election. Things that happened on Monday and Tuesday during special votes and was brought under the attention of the IEC still reoccurred on Wednesday. So it's not budget, it's bad communication, and it's bad management, and it's officials and presiding officers that weren't trained properly.
Do you agree?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. The IEC is not running an election for the first time, right? And secondly, there are lessons that should have been learned in terms of some of the deficiencies that were experienced in 2021. And I think to be having operational deficiencies in this day and age is very disappointing for the IEC. I mean, having instances where, you know, the devices are offline, the IEC system is offline in this day and age when you can make secondary, because historically the IEC has been very professional, has executed it, and the problems have been minimal. And what it has done in this election in particular is also discourage people from staying longer on queues. There are some people, even though there might be very few, there are some people who eventually gave up. And we want an electoral authority to be able to encourage people to stay on queues because they are very quick. I think voters by their nature are reasonable enough to understand that you are going to spend some time at a voting station, but it shouldn't be so unreasonable that you spend your entire day queuing in there. And I think, you know, in fairness, it would be unfair to apportion blame on Parliament in terms of the deficiencies are in there. All these deficiencies are operational, which means the IEC underestimated the capacity that's going to be required, and also didn't do, you know, refresher training in terms of its officials. And that is the disappointment, because some of the IEC staff are repeat officials, you know, who have conducted elections for the past 3 years, for the past 4 years. So there should be an element of efficiency in this regard.
Sure. So Wouter talks about campaigning and talking about, you know, how opposition parties in the last 5 years have brought a message of hope. The DA has been criticized, particularly in this election, to say you were campaigning with a message of fear rather than a message of hope. How do you respond to that?
Well, I think it's a very minimal review of the electoral campaign, and I think that is only based on, you know, the critique around the ad that we made with regard to the flag. But when you check in terms of the entirety of the campaign, we've been very proactive talking about, you know, our package solution in terms of the 7 key pillars around our manifesto to rescue South Africa. The reality is that politics is a contact sport, and as you get closer to elections day, in political campaigning there's what you call squeeze. So you're going to be aggressively exposing and showcasing the failures of government, particularly in an election that is a watershed election in South Africa. I think it was always clear that this election is going to be very decisive in shaping the future of our country going forward. And, you know, while people have their own opinions and criticism of each and every political party, I think it's a message that resonates with a lot of South African voters, and we are seeing that on the scoreboard in terms of the numbers that are coming in.
Talking about the scoreboard, let's perhaps have a look at some of the numbers. I think 58% of the vote has been counted so far. Are we able to pull that up? While we're trying to pull that up, Wouter, I've got a question for you. 2029, you guys were the story, for various reasons, but essentially, you know, the whole analysis to say you've taken a lot of the voters or some of the the voters from the DA. This year, it doesn't seem that, you know, that you've had an upward trajectory. Why is that?
We're upwards in certain areas, but we did go down marginally in certain places. And there are voters who in 2019 decided and went from the Democratic Alliance to us and now went back. But that's not the only votes that we got in 2019. We also now saw growth in certain areas where we never had support, where we did now get support. So it's a balancing act, and it is a complicated election with 3 ballot papers. The national ballot paper and the regional ballot paper confused a lot of people. You know, what you see now there with the national result is only the national ballot paper. Our numbers look slightly different if you look at the regional ballot paper, which also counts towards the National Assembly.
What is the understanding we should take from that, as far as your support is concerned?
I think we're steady. We are keeping our representation in all the provincial legislatures, and in Parliament we'll still see it's 58% of ballot of polling stations, not of votes, that's being counted. So it can still, there's still minor shifts that can happen, and which can make a difference in percentages. But we believe we are there, and I think the success story for all of us is Gauteng. where I really do believe that we can get the ANC, we can form a multi-party charter government, and we can better service delivery in Gauteng.
I'll talk just now about the multi-party governments, but if you look at the scoreboard, with 58% of those that are counted, obviously the ANC coming in at 41, with the DA at 23, and yourselves coming in at 1.5%. So if you look at, obviously we're talking a post-ANC reality, right? And again, I keep on making this point, it's not necessarily an ANC that's off the face of the earth, but essentially an ANC where it's no longer dominant. If we're talking that reality, I mean, are you seeing the multi-party, coalition becoming a reality? If you look at some of the numbers that we've seen so far,
I mean, based on the national picture, you can see that we're going to come very short at that level. And the understanding and the discussions in the multi-party charter was also that if at the national level that picture is not forming, then what are the other avenues? And Wouter makes a very good point regarding the prospect of Gauteng, which is where, when you look at the overall performance of the multi-party charter, it then becomes the next logical step to say this is an area wherein, as the multi-party charter on our own, we can form a government in there. I know there's been lots of speculation, and don't want to preempt your questions in terms of what does it say about the two largest parties or nationally. We haven't initiated any conversation with the ANC, and we are not going to provide a backdoor for the ANC to get back into power. Our commitment right now, until the finalization of the elections, was let's see how far the multi-party charter gets, and on the basis of where it gets, the leaders of the political parties in the multi-party charter will have to convene and have their own post analysis of what have each of us brought to the table, and where does it leave us, guided by the number that we have. And then all those scenarios in terms of national, provincial, will be guided by the discussion that would have emerged from there.
And yourself, some of the criticism I think you guys face is whether or not you've had impact in Parliament. So you had this 5 years where you had some good numbers as far as Parliament is concerned. And did you really have an impact in those 5 years?
I believe we did. We with the ANC on 57% where they were in the previous term, we as opposition parties could work together. The Freedom Front Plus was instrumental in many of those attempts to get legislation voted down. We successfully avoided certain appointments, political appointments that the ANC wanted to steamroll, through. So we did play a role. COVID made it very complicated. We played a role during COVID, also going to court with many instances of, power abuse of power by the governing party. So yes, we used the platform, and I don't think the electorate at this stage voted on a scorecard scoring parties at what they did in Parliament, because then you have to look at the MK party, and you'd have to also analyse the electorate does not like new parties. If you look at a lot of newcomers, they didn't do very well, but the MK did.
I was about to say, I suppose you're kind of meaning that
MK
is not
the picture.
Yes.
And it complicates everything, and it complicates this outcome, and makes the election much different than 2019. Yeah. It will also make the next term very much exciting.
I love the laughs, because
we'll have to work. A roller coaster.
It's going to be, but we'll have to work very hard, and we are committed as the Freedom Front Plus to work in this term very hard with on Parliament, because even if there's a coalition, which side ever, it's more fluid, and we'll have to bring back oversight and accountability into Parliament, and I think it is possible, and it creates exciting opportunities in this new term.
Am I correct then to make an assessment to say, you believe that your strongest shot as far as making impact is the multi-party coalition, because the CSIR is predicting that you will, of course the results are not complete, but they're predicting a number of losses as far as seats for you guys. If you are losing seats at a time where you say it's going to be a roller coaster ride, and you're bringing in the MK into the Parliament, presumably your impact may be reduced. Are you seeing if you are able to hunt in the pack that impact may be realized?
I want to steal this quote from General Bantu Olumisa, who says that it's not about quantity, it's about quality. And in Parliament it really is. And go back to go and look at many parties. The DA's forerunners were many times one member in Parliament and made a huge impact during the apartheid years to still be a voice there of reason and who contributed to us being a democracy now. One member can make a difference. So it's not always about quantity. But obviously we work together before the multi-party charter as opposition parties, and we work together in committees and in Parliament to serve our electorate, but it's not about...
Four of us got in 2014, right, as members of Parliament, and for people who had been around in Parliament for a long time, there was kind of like a shock in terms of how the EFF does things unconventionally, in terms of conduct in Parliament, parliamentary decorum and all that sort of business. To have an impact in Parliament, you have to be able to work across political aisles so that you've got support from other parties in introducing new bills, for instance, in introducing new issues on the committee's agenda to hold the executive accountable. So in an instance wherein the sizes of each parties are split that way, the committees will have much more of a stronger voice in holding the executive accountable. And I think the opportunity in here is going to be about restoring Parliament to what it should have always been, as a house that is representative of the voices of the electorate, but one that also holds the executive to account, not become an extension of the executive.
Your campaign, Solly, very much was about, warning South Africa of what you call a doomsday coalition.
Yeah.
So we're talking ANC, MK, and EFF. If you look at the performance of the MK, right, and of course we don't know what may happen, as far as conversations there,
yeah.
But presuming that your scenario, becomes the one that, and you're laughing at it, presuming that your scenario becomes the one that prevails, how do you navigate that as John was saying, you guys see yourselves as a reasonable, opposition. How do you navigate that in terms of holding the executive to account?
Yeah, look, it's all going to be about, one, the composition of the committees and where do those lie? Because, at this stage, we are basically working with a fictional composition of what government would be in the first instance, and secondly, what the committees are in there. But historically, our passion and view of Parliament was always that it needs to be a house for robust debate. It needs to be a house that holds the executive accountable. It needs to be a house that also generates legislation. We have a very odd instance where we're having more legislation generated by the executive rather than members of Parliament, because a lot of the private members' bills that are introduced by the opposition get suffocated through the ANC's majoritarianism in Parliament. That won't be a factor now. What is going to force us as political parties is we have to have far more engagements with each other in order to get bills through, in order to get votes through, in order to get even key state-owned enterprises appointments and Chapter 9 institutions appointment through. So this is going to be the real test of political diplomacy and just also mature politics in our democratic space.
Just I want to circle back to the potential coalition conversations, right?
Yeah.
So if you put slightly for now, you put aside the multi-party charter, right? And you look at, the conversation about a potential ANC-DA coalition, and that being one that is potentially preferred by the markets, right? Whatever that means. Okay. Yeah. Tell me why you reacted like that. Why
I reacted like that because there is an increasing external pressure to pigeonhole the two largest parties into working together. The voters made their choices, and it was always very clear, because from as early as last year, we were able to have a forecast that tells us that the ANC could come under 50%.
Yep.
We got a lot of flack recently when you said the ANC will lose its majority in one of our political ads, but it was guided by the insights that we're gaining, over time. I think it is unfair to impose for multi-party charter. We've also not been given.
I think will remain so as the official opposition, but there will be coalitions. KZN I don't predict that and I don't think analysts are predicting that the MK will get a 50% plus one majority, which means that there will have to be coalitions, and we'll have to see how the coalition talks go and which parties would like to come together to be the government of KwaZulu-Natal.
And at this stage, as the IFP, are you willing to go into a coalition with the MK party?
We haven't spoken to the MK at all yet. The only talks that we've had is within the multi-party charter, because we are in partnership with the DA in KwaZulu-Natal in many municipalities already. So I think our first port of call as leadership would be to talk to within the multi-party charter and then see how we take forward the multi-party charter as a bloc or as individual parties to talk to other parties that want to form government.
So as the multi-party charter, what do you make of the results, the current results? I know it's not complete, but it's giving direction.
It's quite disappointing to note that some of the newer parties that have come on are not doing as well as they should. People seem to have gone for the traditional parties, the 5 or 6 traditional parties that they used to. And another surprising result is coming from the Patriotic Alliance. But I suppose that's mainly in the Western Cape. They seem to be doing pretty well in the Western Cape, but not in the other provinces.
Of course, he is affirming the partnership that you guys have, but not necessarily closing the door, if I'm understanding him, not necessarily closing the door on possible conversations with the MK party. In 30 seconds, is anyone allowed to leave the multi-party charter and start conversations with anybody else? I'll start with you, Wouter.
No, you can't force any party to remain part. It's a pre-election agreement, which will make coalition negotiations in Gauteng much easier. But it doesn't close the door for any party. It's a party's choice. But they will be dealt with the electorate if they make the wrong choice.
Solly?
I think every choice has its consequences or benefits, and ultimately the people who impose the benefits or the consequences will be voters in elections coming up going forward. Every party has the right to make whatever choice it chooses to make, but there is an act of good faith that is binding on all the parties, that it was a pre-election pact, and post the elections we need to in good faith converge again and say this is what we spoke about. The picture is not emerging at a national level. Can we replicate that aspiration elsewhere? And if we can, how do we manage it?
Fantastic, gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
And thank you. We'll be right back straight after this break. Thank you.
We are Arena. We are home to some of the most trusted and loved brands spanning news, business and finance, lifestyle and entertainment. We believe in connecting people of all cultures. We pride ourselves on creating and curating quality content, accessed by consumers when and how they want. We are a multi-platform media network that delivers unrivaled possibilities to advertisers. We reach millions of people each month across our print, digital, TV, radio, events and entertainment divisions. Our mass reach and premium content make us the perfect partner for your business. We are news. At the heart of Arena is a world-class newsroom that is committed to providing the country with breaking news from around the globe. With some of South Africa's favorite and oldest publications forming part of our portfolio, we deliver to readers a continuous feed of news and information ranging from business news, sports coverage to political analysis. We are home to Times Live, one of South Africa's largest websites, and the Sunday Times, South Africa's biggest weekend newspaper. We are entertainment. We bring local and international entertainment to audiences, while at the same time sharing authentic African entertainment with the world. You can leverage the emotional connection we forge through music and movies with strategic brand integration solutions. We are magazines. We are dedicated to bringing magazines to life through a unique blend of newsworthy information and entertainment-focused reading. From travel to decor, lifestyle to the most wanted items around, we bring it all to you. We are television. Through our channels, we take viewers from the latest trends in home decor to cutting-edge business and investment information to entertaining motoring programs. We are radio. Our 2 local radio stations are listened to by a progressive black audience who enjoy a diverse blend of music, news, entertainment, and current affairs. We are events. We host and manage some of the most memorable and notable business and corporate events in Africa. We are ready to help you meet your strategic marketing objectives by creating solutions that entertain, innovate, and perform. We use imagination to develop impactful ad formats, creative and branded content, and data and insights to deliver intelligent solutions. No matter who you want to reach, we've got you covered. Because we are media. We are Arena.
So we're now just, looking at the capturing that is still ongoing. I think nationally we're sitting at 59% of the votes that have been loaded already on the system.
Yeah.
And we're quite happy. We're doing very well.
The picture is looking different for you, as it was, in previous elections. So as things stand now, of course, notwithstanding the fact that the vote is not complete, or the counting or validation is not complete, but you at the moment you're standing at number 4. You can't be happy about that result.
No, so as I said, the percentage is 59%.
Yes.
And the actual number of voters who voted for the EFF with 59% counted is 790,000. So we're quite happy. So Nwabisa, the counting or the loading of the results on the system starts from the smaller VDs. And those small VDs are those VDs in the farms, those VDs from the small sub-regions. As you can see here in Gauteng, Mid-Valley is completed. It's a small sub-region of Gauteng. In Mpumalanga, Emakazeni, VDs that have not been counted. Come here to Gauteng. Ekurhuleni is not done counting. Joburg is not done. Tshwane is not done. And that's always been the case, that's where the black majority of our people are. And it goes without saying that those people finish counting late. I mean, here in Tshwane, Ward 5, my ward, my secretary of the branch was saying to me, she left the VD yesterday around 3-4 o'clock in the afternoon after counting. So it tells you that the results from the big VDs have not come through. And the
so
research,
you may come back.
We will. The research has always been that our support base is in the black votes, and those are found in the townships. That's why you see majority of Gauteng, of Joburg, Tshwane, and Ekurhuleni is not in. There in Mpumalanga, Dr. J.S. Moroka is not yet in. Tembisi Lehani, Emalahleni, Bushbuckridge is still not in. So that's where our votes come in. In Limpopo, Polokwane, in the main VDs, majority of them, over 60% of the VDs have not come in. If you look at Eastern Cape, Buffalo City, majority of them are not yet in Nelson Mandela Bay. So it goes like that across the country, the metros in the main have not yet come in. And it's evident, in KZN, that in 2019 and 2021, our support base grew immensely in eThekwini. That's why we came back with so many councillors in eThekwini. eThekwini is not counted.
Let's talk
in the
about
votes.
KZN. Let's talk about KZN and of course the dynamic of the MK party. One, are you surprised by how much they've showed up in that province?
MK is contesting like all the parties
Yes.
that is contesting.
Correct.
And people have their choice.
Yes.
They've made their choice. If you look at what I'm saying to you is that look at the VDs that came in from KZN. We know that IFP has been strong in the north. So the votes, the VDs that are in now for MK is the VDs from where they are strong. eThekwini, go to the system now and check. They're still not in. That's where the EFF is strong. So there's a lot of municipalities, Umgungundlovu, they are still not in, and many others. So the people have made their choices, and we're quite happy that people voted. Yeah. What you are not talking about, Nwabisa, is these glitches of the IEC, the irregularities.
I'm going to come. Trust me, and I ask every political party, by the way, the question about how you feel the IEC has managed this election. But I do want to stay with with KZN and really ask the question. So, assuming that the picture does not necessarily change, at least doesn't change drastically, what conversations would you be having with the EFF, just as far as potentially coalitions going forward?
I wouldn't want to put that question right now, because let's take Northern Cape for an example. They're finished with the counting. They're on 100% now. But before they got to that, when they were at 50, 60, you couldn't really get the clear picture of how the picture would look like at 100%. So maybe let's give it until it's 90%. I mean, we've seen a big jump when the counting was now at 90%. EFF now, as things stand, we received over 10,000 more voters than we did in 2019. The EFF grew by 29% in the Northern Cape, which is now at 100%. So I'm just saying to you, we can't have that conversation now because we're still at very, very low. We're like 59%. Let's wait until we're at 90%, and then we'll see the clear picture of now. These big VDs that are coming in, where will it take us, how the picture will look like ultimately.
I can accept that. The leader of the EFF, Mr. Julius Malema, tweeted this morning and basically said, if I quote him correctly, he said, "We accept this mandate with humility." Are we wrong to read him to say he accepts the fact that the EFF may be at the position that it is right now without necessarily a much bigger improvement?
No, he's just saying to the people who voted for the EFF, thank you very much. And he's saying the ANC has not managed to score the majority of the votes. We've always been saying our biggest problem for us to achieve economic freedom in our lifetime is the ANC. Yeah. The ANC has been stagnant at 42%. If anything, the ANC, we should push it to go even below 40%. So when he says he accepts the mandate with humility, he accepts the fact that South Africans are saying we're done with the ANC. The elephant in the room, we're eating it piece by piece.
They still remain the biggest. They still remain the biggest, party. Obviously, are you willing to have conversations with them?
Not at this stage, Nwabisa. Let's wait until the elections are over. But let's also remember that it doesn't happen that a party which enjoyed majority for a long time will come and suddenly be a minority. Let's take countries like Denmark as an example. They've been in coalition government for over 40 years. And only now, when I was there 2 years ago, they said the party that gets the majority will get around 20 to 25%. That's 40 years into coalition. It never started at 20%. So it started with a party that possibly got 49% the first time around, and then it went down until we are still going to see in the coming elections, the ANC is still going to drop. They might enjoy the majority now of the votes, but they will not go above 50%. That one I think is clear, and they've already accepted that. But they might not go to 30% now. But in the coming election, if they finish now at 42%, you are guaranteed that in the next election, they will not go above 35%.
So I mean, I think it is pretty much an established fact. I'll venture to say that the ANC obviously is not going to get 50 plus 1. So we will have a coalition government. At least that's what the numbers right now, even though they're not concluded. But we will potentially have a coalition government in South Africa. Who are you wanting to have a conversation with, or who are you prepared? Perhaps not wanting is the right word. Who are you prepared to have a conversation with?
We are prepared to have a coalition with somebody who says to us, we agree with your 7 non-negotiable cardinal pillars. You'll remember that in 2021, we spoke to various political parties and we put our demands on the table. And I'm sure you'll remember Malula saying he was writing an exam. That exam paper still remains the same. It's not diluted. It's the first 7 non-negotiable cardinal pillars of the EFF. It talks expropriation of land without compensation, Why do you think the DA says they will never talk to us? Because we are clear that here is now a national platform where really the land can be brought back to the hands of our people.
But this is what you guys said in 2016, and you guys went and talked to the DA, and not just talked to the DA, but essentially entered into not necessarily a coalition, but in some supporting the DA as far as certain kinds of decisions in local government. Is this different here?
So Nwabisa, at the end of the day, somebody needs to form government.
Sure.
And that somebody is the political parties who have seats in legislature and in parliament. So it's inevitable that you would want to talk to everybody. But what did we do in 2016? We gave them power and set back. But then people of South Africa were saying, you don't have experience. That's why in 2021 we said, okay, since you are saying we don't have experience, let's then get this experience you're talking about. And that's why you see we got some portfolios. Not that we formed a coalition government, but we formed a working relationship with these people, because at the end of the day, government must be formed. And if we form government with FF Plus that agrees to our expropriation of land without compensation, so be it. I mean, Denmark is an example. It's a practical example for me because I've practically been there personally. The extreme right, the proper blues can speak to the extreme left, the proper reds, and still form a government together. And that's one thing that stands out for me, for Denmark, to say, if political parties were to, exercise the same thing in Denmark. In Denmark, today, they agree to social welfare. In Denmark, they agree to building state houses for our people. In Denmark, they agree to free quality education. In Denmark, they agree to free health and sanitation. Why can't we agree on those things as the people of South Africa? So we are saying to political parties, it doesn't matter whether it's extreme red or it's extreme blue, which is extreme left and right. For as long as we agree on the principle that let's share on the wealth of this country. We're saying to white people, FF Plus and DA, FF Plus hasn't been really talking openly about their position. DA is
I think they've said, though, that they wouldn't go into a coalition with you.
Well, the people of South Africa have not decided that they will go on their own, and they will have to come to the table and talk to us. And with us, they will find us ready with our 7 non-negotiable cardinal pillars. But we are saying to them, is it not in their interest that we want to curb crime in the country? Is it not in their interest that we would want to create employment in our country? Where are we going to create employment if you don't have the land? So firstly, you take the land and then you industrialize the country so that you can create millions of sustainable jobs. But you also can't do that without stopping load shedding. Once you open factories, you ought to have electricity that will make you to be operational and functional 24/7. And that's what, it's a marriage. It's land, it's factories, industrialization, and it's electricity. Once you get income from there, it's a no-brainer that you will give the people of South Africa free health, because you want those people to be fit and strong, to go and work the mines, to go and work the land, to go and work in these factories that we would have opened. So why would we even have a debate about that?
Am I correct then to say, if you're looking at your cardinal pillars, you're much more close to the MK perhaps, and that's probably the most logical conversation to be had?
We're close to anybody who says, I think let's agree on the issue of land, expropriation of land without compensation. We're close to anybody who agrees to nationalizations of mines, strategic sectors of the economy. We're close to anybody who says let's create state capacity. We're close to anybody who says let's give our people free quality education, healthcare system, sanitation. We're close to anybody who says we need to create millions of sustainable jobs in the country. And we're close to anybody who says we will not want a corrupt country. We want a corrupt-free government that will not use its machinery to go after our people. If the people of this country can agree to that, if these political parties can agree to that, we're going to form a coalition with them.
Just one last question before the IEC. I've got to ask this. So your president, Mr. Julius Malema, there was a clip that is going around where he was speaking, I think at a media briefing, and he's speaking about, he says, I'm not a leader or he says, I don't care about Limpopo, I don't care about Gauteng, I care about South Africa, right? And I think he was kind of making a point to say, and he goes on to say, I'm an international leader, right? Many people, perhaps unfairly, kind of heard him to say, well, you don't care about the people of Limpopo. You're saying you don't care about the people of Gauteng. Was he misunderstood? And do you think that, he may have taken a knock as far as, how people perceive him because of what he said in that clip?
He was definitely misunderstood, and possibly that misunderstanding was pushed by you comrades of the media, because we understood it quite well. President is the president of the third biggest movement in the land, and by far the biggest influential movement in the continent.
Could he have said it better though? I mean, if you use that, and he's 2024. Have a good evening.